Beep, 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 beep. How you doing? What? Buy me a coffee. Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night to the court of the EDI Jester. I'm of fine spirits this evening because I've come across a wonderful resource that I think you need to know about. We talk about resources all the time, and half the problem... Bloody glasses are steamed up. And half the problem is, right, that we've got so many of them, you know, that you bookmark, and then you try and find it and you can't bloody find it. I had this out with Gareth Roberts yesterday. I was like, Gareth, you posted a thing about... And he went, no, don't remember that. And I had to explain more. No, what it meant... And he went, oh, yes, that was very good. And then he came back to me 10 minutes later because I couldn't find it and just simply said, I can't find it either. Hopeless, right? Hopeless. Absolutely hopeless. But anyway, there's a woman on Twitter I only know as Susan, right? Okay, who I came across a tweet that Susan had done yesterday, which I'm going to try and find again. And thankfully, I've kept a copy of what it was that Susan sent me, which I put in the links in the doobries for you. So this is one of two things that have happened over the last few days. In fact, it's more than two, but we'll do two to begin with and see how we get on. So the first one, let me explain what Susan has done. Now, Susan has used a piece of software which is quite interesting. And Susan has created a timeline, which I think many of you would find very interesting, beginning, I think, around about 1960, 1970. And this timeline is interactive in that you can see the major moves that have occurred across the landscape of what we would call the gender wars. Now, you could, in theory, expand upon this infinitely, but Susan has done an incredible job of providing a kind of framework to seeing what's happened through time that goes back to a certain period. I mentioned when I caught it, and I messaged Susan on Twitter, I retweeted on Twitter and said that the starting point, you could go back further actually from the starting point that Susan had begun, and she responded saying, well, it started to look cluttered. Well, it would do, right? So I'm going to have a bigger look at this timeline when I get 10 minutes today. And then I can see exactly what it means in terms of understanding this. And I'm a great one for historic timelines. It's one of my major things that we use as people engage with me on the Warrior Teacher course, the Winning Mindset. And we use those ideas of timelines and storytelling, which is very important, very, very important indeed. I mean, narrative storytelling is one of the main ways in which humanity has communicated for millennia, and it's not something new. So Susan has provided a nice framework here for anybody who wants to go back and look, because you can identify the particular thing that has occurred that Susan has identified, and through doing so, you can then obviously do your own research, go and look elsewhere, find out more. So particularly useful for those who are in the fight, who've just arrived and are going, what the living hell's going on here? Which is how most people tend to be when they begin. Right, so I put the link for that in the doobries. I think you'll find that incredibly interesting. I'm going to find Susan's Twitter. Please let me find Susan's Twitter. And then I can put a link to Susan so you can follow Susan, because she's done great work here and I think it's worthy of praise. So that was the first thing. What was the bloody second? I forgot what the damn second thing was. Now, this is me all over at the moment. What the hell's wrong with my head? Age, I suspect. Age. So that was the first thing. The next thing was that somebody said post below on Facebook with everything you know about queer. So I put up my video about my analysis of Judith Butler and Owen Jones's interview and what exactly queer is and what it means to people. So I put that up as well. And then somebody else posted, Ruth, I think, about it's about time the GC started a GC sort of collective where everybody pays monthly so that they can raise money and actually start producing a sort of a semi-organisation that could handle some of this. And I said it was a really good idea, but it's a difficult one because you've got the caveat has to be everybody gets paid, right? And yesterday this came up again in conversation with some of the GC women who were at the Conservative Party conference. For example, Kate from Keep Prison Single Sex. We stopped and had a spot lunch. I had veal. Shouldn't have, but I did. Right, so we stopped and had a spot of lunch at a nice Italian restaurant. Chats to catch up, and this was mentioned again. This idea of funding is a problem. So I had a dabble. No, I had a dabble. Right, yesterday looking for. Do you know? I had absolutely no concept of the sheer number of funding streams that are available. There are from tiny, we'll give you 500 quid if you're doing X, that kind of thing, from literally individuals right the way through to large organisations. But there are thousands. And it occurred to me, I mean, I imagine, organisations like Sex Matters and people like that, the big players who are really fighting at that legal level of it, I'm sure are more than aware of this and have their own kind of, management systems for dealing with applying for funding. And I think that there's an argument there that what we need really is somebody who understands this type of thing and can then take a look at this myriad of opportunities that are available in terms of grants and funding and see if they can find something that will be appropriate, for example, to bring together maybe, I don't know, Mr. Menno, me, other people working in the sphere who are not necessarily being big players. Like, for example, Kate from Keep Prison Single Sex does a fantastic job, but on her own mostly. She's got other people helping her, but mostly it's her, and she's doing it. And she said to me, "Okay, we need a marketing person. We need this. We need that." So we're almost like we feel like a sort of point of where the next jump is going to require some kind of funding, and I'm not quite sure how to get that because I'm not a funding specialist, I have to say. But there must be one of you out there somewhere. Can you imagine that? Yep. Then we can get people on board who know what they're doing. Yes. So Sex Matters have already done this, which is fantastic. That's great. They're forming a large organisation, not large, but an organisation that will attempt to fund and keep going and fight the big fights on the law front. But I like the idea. There's like a GC pot. I've just got no idea how I would do it. So that was the second thing, the timeline, right? And then this idea of the GC pot was the second thing that came up. And I thought it was worthwhile saying, come on, YouTubes, you peeps out there, have a think. What do you think? Tell me on Twitter or tell me. Let's get, because lottery funding applications are a nightmare. I mean, I'm a chair of, a charity, lottery funded, nightmare. Okay, nightmare, right? So I wouldn't know the first thing to do about that. I wouldn't know how to start. I wouldn't even know where to bloody begin. So timeline. Why not have some group of people that start going after the funding, and the first thing being they fund themselves to do it, and then we move on from there. I don't know if it's doable. There must be some fund managers out. Not fund managers. What do they call them? I don't know. You tell me, because I haven't got a clue. And then thirdly, is it me or is it the Conservative Party been playing a blinder lately? Have they been playing a blinder? That's the third one, right? Some good stuff coming out of what's going on at the conference. They've got to do it, mind yet. So I remain sceptical. And then finally, did you see that the 4 gay Tories got ejected from a bar on Canal Street? That's caused a kerfuffle. Because the bars issued a statement and got a drag queen to speak to the camera, and unfortunately they could just as easily give themselves a spade. They've dug such a hole. Now, I don't know where that's going. I don't know whether anything's going to happen with that, but it's been really interesting to watch. And people are going, oh, you can throw out who you like. Yeah, but not when you've already made a statement on Twitter that you had the intent of not letting them in the first place because of their beliefs as conservatives and gender-critical gay men. You couldn't make it up. It wouldn't be worrying so much if it wasn't for the fact that I haven't told them, but I sent a letter to the Village Business Association just before Pride saying, here's what you need to be careful of. I warned them that this was going to happen. And yet, no, they'll ignore me. Of course they will. Oh, he's just a bigot. That's right, isn't it, guys? I'm just a bigot. I don't know what I'm talking about. So it's been an interesting few days. But go and have a look at the timeline. I think it's brilliant. You let me know what you think of the Dubras. Ta-da!